Hello and welcome to the live stream of Living Past, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it would be rude not to introduce ourselves first. So who are standing here?
Hi, I'm Joja, former student of Living Past and first year facilitator, and next to me is Ivar.
That's right. I've been on the Rodeo for a bit longer. This is the 7th time we are providing this course, and very excited to get the students here to show what they have been working on over the past weeks. So let's get to it. It's up to us to give a bit of an introduction to what the course is, give a bit of context. You might have seen that before in one of the previous years, but it's still important that everybody is on the same page. So let's go. Firstly, it's not just us. There's also, behind the computer here,
Simon.
Yeah.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Yeah. It's a bit hard to change the camera direction now, but believe us, he really is there and he is doing all the technical hard work. So thank you, Simon. And there's also Tom Peters, who I've heard is listening to us from a car at the moment. Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. Let's go on to if you would. Yes, there we are. The timeline. Where are we at the moment? So we already said 7th iteration. What have we had before?
Oh, a lot of things, but I think Ivar, you're the person to tell, right? Because you were there with all of them.
That is right. Yeah, rub it in. We looked at the Neude in the first instance. We looked at Janskerkhof, 2 times at Domplein, Zuilen, and now we are in the phase of Lombok. And it's the 2nd time we're visiting it. We have, amongst other, Joja and also Bibi, who were there the previous round to offer us a documentary. So if you were there, you know the work that has gone before this. But let's quickly go through the kind of things that have happened. So, in the first round, we created a map-based application, trying to get the first stories out about Lombok, and that quickly developed into other formats. For example, Taste of Time has inspired many groups after that, taking a look at the recipes that are typically Utrecht and making a video tutorial about it as well. Half a year later, we were visited by all these historical characters in the city, trying to create a full-on narrative where you can walk around and kind of solve the problems that are playing there with a basilisk tearing apart the space-time fabric. Also, visual novels have been worked on, trying to get across the choices that had to be made through history and trying to get some perspective taking to take place there. One group also created an escape room, which now in fact is being worked on together with Museum of Zuilen, and will be available to actually play for you in the next year, 2023. So if you're curious about seeing the kind of work they did and you'd like to see it in person, then please take a look at Museum of Zuilen at some point in 2023. And then last time around, and this is where I'm not the expert, so Joja, what happened then again?
Last year we made a documentary, Ivar already said so. So we talked to 3 people who are living in this moment in Lombok. And we actually got to know them and talk with their experience of Lombok, how they got here. Very exciting project, also visible at RTV Utrecht.
Yeah, manage that. Very nice. Alright, but enough about what has happened in the past. Let's talk first a bit about what is Living Past, the context of this course, how could these type of products have developed, and then quickly go over to the actual work that has been done over these past 10 weeks, because that's why you're here. But first, what is Living Pasts? Where did it start again?
Yeah, Ivar, when did it start again?
It was with the time machine movement, the idea of bringing, working with big data of the past, trying to figure out how we could use all the little data in the archive and, kind of bring history to life with it once more. Maybe I'll take that over, that's easier. Huh? Yeah, I agree. A first idea was to create this augmented reality application where you could take a look at the city with the eyes of painters of the past. And now there's actually something available in the city, the Utrecht Time Machine application. It's a website that has now been developed. And also there's another way to access this, right?
So a website, and you also have tiles in the street. So if you're walking through Utrecht, you can actually also access the projects with the tile streets.
Yes, so if you look down once in a while and you see a QR code, then there's a good chance it might be the Utrecht Time Machine that you could be visiting right there. And from that idea came the Living Past course back in 2019. But the idea was to use innovative technology both to work in the methods and in the format of how you could share this kind of information with the public. And over time, we've seen that mostly the second one has been quite exciting, right? Working with media, documentary forms, etc. The philosophy of the course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also called...
Buzzword bingo.
That's right. Welcome.
Yeah.
You might have seen this last time already, but you know, it still kind of holds true. In the end, it's really how these pieces come together, but it's good to give you a bit of context, these big terms, right? So maybe to start off with, challenge-based.
Yeah.
To develop an in-situ product using design research, it really makes something, it's hands-on, it works based on a challenge that has been set in the city. And for this, we use design research, right? This idea of iterating.
Yeah, so also for you, the double diamond, also part of this.
Indeed. Transdisciplinary, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so transdisciplinary work. In academia, we usually work disciplinary, so you have history, you have biology, etc., etc. And in this course, we don't only work interdisciplinary, so we don't only bridge between the disciplines, but we also work with actual people from society, so that makes it transdisciplinary.
And here's a nice image showing what that could look like. So not just the disciplines next to each other, or not just intertwined, but actually also with this non-academic knowledge, the stakeholders of the city. And that's what we're doing over the past time.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge to really get in touch with the community members, but in any case, we've managed to work quite successfully with quite some partners, right? To be community engaged.
Yeah, it's also part of the transdisciplinary work, I think, and also part of why we're here today in the Buurtcentrum in Lombok.
Yeah. We didn't say that, by the way, to the live stream people, but that's where we are, indeed, in Buurthuis Rosa in Lombok, so we are on location. These are some of the partners we've worked with over the past years, and also now again, for example, we visited the Utrecht Archives and also used their resources in order to create the projects. And then finally, co-design.
Yeah, I think one of the most important pillars of the course. So we don't only design the course for the students, but students really are engaged to co-design it with us. So can you maybe give an example?
Certainly. So the rubrics that we set, so the assessment is something we discuss with our students. Of course, we still need to make sure that it's high quality work, but it's a dialogue to see what is actually the things you want to achieve. We're also going to talk a bit about the personal learning goals in a moment, which are also set, and also changes things from our side, right?
Mm-hmm. So we are not only like saying what student needs to do, but students actually come to us and also say what they would like to do. So we are kind of facilitating them.
Exactly. Taking on different hats as the situation requires. Now finally, let's take a look at the structure of the course. We already mentioned throughout there's this learning journal. You've been through it, right?
Yeah.
Writing it up and now coaching students
Yeah.
through it. Can you tell us a bit about what this entails?
Yeah, so every student makes at least 3 PLGs, so personal learning goals. And those PLGs can be everything. So we have students who want to improve their English or wants to improve their time handling.
Time management.
Time management,
In
thank
a
you.
fancy
Igor.
term,
Yeah.
that's right.
But also like work with applications and stuff like that. So it can be anything and we try to facilitate them to do that.
Yeah, so hopefully it has been a good place to do that. And I guess we're going to find out in the presentations in a moment. And of course you can always ask questions about these things as well. These personal things maybe are better placed in the plenary at the very end. But if you have anything that just pops into your mind, make sure to put it in the chat, right? Yeah, this is important. The other thing, so there are 2 phases to this course, right? The mapping phase and the prototype phase. All our students have been very diligently at work to map the area of Lombok, to try to understand what it means. And various topics have been discussed there, right?
Yeah, so we have, for example, a student who worked with the ground plans and also with the infrastructure of Lombok. We have a student who worked with the street names and also the colonial history of them in the neighborhoods.
Students have looked at street, the culture of food, like what kind of purveyors, is there any gentrification happening and changes in what is on offer. Another student looked at the ecology of Lombok, what kind of threats are here relating to water, relating to heat, and how can they be resolved, and what kind of projects are around it.
We had a student who was looking at the house prices and also related to gentrification in the neighborhoods. And a student who was looking at the homemaking practices also in the neighborhood and the different practices of it.
Indeed. And finally, we also had a student who worked on the languages that are spoken in the area, trying to figure out where things are accessible or not, depending on the language you speak. And another student took one of the stories of the past, the cat Purry, and tried to explore through the eyes of a cat how health worked in the area of Lombok. And now, maybe the most important part.
Yeah, the part and the reason why you're all here, I think, today. The prototyping phase. So
Without further ado, I think it is time to get our very first team right here on stage, after a really nice bumper, I'm sure.
give them a warm applause.
Elise and Aniek are here, and Jules is also part of their team.
Okay, welcome everyone. We are Aniek and Elise. We are youth talent students from Kasselcollege Nieuwegein. And youth talent means that next to our regular exam year in high school, we also took this course. And today we're going to show you our project that we did together with Jules, who unfortunately could not be here today. So, Willen gaat werken is our project. It's a game. And like every project, it starts with brainstorming. So first off, we had to decide whether we were going to continue a project that was done before by other youth talent students called Hidden Places, or whether we wanted to do our own project based in Lombok. And well, we thought about it and we were really interested by Lombok. When we went to the Utrecht archive, we got a small introduction to the hamburger factory that once was in Lombok, and we decided, well, we want to teach people more about this. We did some research and it was very hard to find any information on the internet, which is a bummer because there should be information accessible on the internet. And we looked at our own personal learning goals and we decided that the type of product we wanted to make was a game, because that would have us, then we could program, we could make a storyline behind it, and we could really do exactly what we wanted to do. As it is a historical information, of course, we decided for our game we wanted to do factual information type, so that we could find facts, we could translate them into a story and then ask questions about this. And then we decided on the target audience. We decided 10 to 12-year-olds were the most interesting for us. We think that the transition from primary to secondary school is a very interesting phase, and we think that learning could be very fun and interesting for these kids. However, children learn best when they find it interesting and fun. So playing a game is more fun than reading a textbook. So then playing the game, like making a game, would make sense with a target group. Another thing is that there are quite a lot of primary schools in Lombok, so then this would be a way for them to learn about their own neighborhood. And lastly, we have some personal ties in the age group, so that we could in the end test out our product, which we will talk about later. Our goal for this is to make information more accessible and to educate children on this very interesting and also quite important piece of history.
So after we decided on the goal for our project, we got working on the storyline. As mentioned before, we wanted our app to be about a hamburger factory that was once based in Lombok. And in order to teach the children about this factory, we decided to go with a day in the life of Willem. And Willem is a factory worker who worked in a factory in 1925. And Willem is based on a real person, he's based on Mr. Schipper, and that's someone who actually worked in the factory for 40 years. And during the game, the children get to know Willem and what he does at the factory. And they also get introduced to his colleague Jan. Jan and Willem both have a different job at the factory, but they go together to work every day and they talk a lot. And that's also the way that we teach the children about the facts that we have found about the factory. We also ask the children questions to make sure that they retain the information. The questions that we ask are all based on the facts that we found in the Utrecht archive, because that's where we did our research. As mentioned before, we went to the archive once with the entire course, and we got a small introduction there. And when we were looking around and deciding on where to do our research, we thought back to the archive and decided that that's where we wanted to go, because that was the place with the most information available on the hamburger factory, and they were very willing to help us out with really getting to know this information and for us being able to translate it into a prototype. When we went there, they helped us find multiple documents, and they helped us with how to do historical research, because that's something that we never did before. They were very helpful, and we're also very thankful because without the Utrecht archive we wouldn't have been able to find much information about the hamburger factory, because as said before, there's not much online to be found about it. And in the app we have made a small selection of the information that we wanted to tell the children. And we would like to give you a small short summary of this information so that you're aware of what we tell the children. So the hamburger factory came to Lombok in 1872, but it's not the year that it started, because the hamburger factory was first based at the Oude Gracht in the city center of Utrecht, which is a quite interesting fact because it's in the entirety in the center. But when it got too big, it had to move, so it moved to the outskirts of the center into Lombok. And it was one of the most successful lead and zinc factories in the country. And the Lombok neighborhood arose around this factory because the workers had to be housed, and Lombok was the place to be. But it were not all good stories about the factory, because the factory also came with a lot of pollution. And even though that's something that was known in the 1880s, the municipality hadn't acted on it before until around 1960. And that's also when they started speaking about closing the factory due to the health hazards that came with it. And in 1975 the factory was closed, and then in 1986 they broke down the buildings and built new houses and a small park, and that's where we're at right now. And with this information we moved on to the application phase of our process. And before we decided to start coding, we wanted to make some small wireframes to make sure that we were on the same page with our team, that we all wanted to make the same things, and that we had thought about which things would be important for our prototype. In these wireframes, you can see the basics of what we wanted to make. So we decided that we wanted a few different kind of screens. For example, a welcome screen and a screen on which the people could see where they needed to go. And we wanted separate screens for the text that we would be giving the children, and of course ones for the questions as well. So we chose on a bit of a basic design at first, but we have altered design a bit later on when we really started programming. When we started programming, first we needed to decide in which programming languages we wanted to do this. We decided upon HTML, CSS and JavaScript. These are a bit of a basic programming languages. We decided on these languages because we wanted to learn the basics of programming, and we really wanted to be able to have a prototype ready at the end of the course. And therefore we decided not to go with the hardest options that were out there. And I will be walking you through what we really created at the end for our prototype. Important to note is that we also have a map that comes with our app. The map is right now still on paper, and that's one that will be handed to the children. And the map is something that they need in order to be able to really complete the tour that we made for them. So first the basics. In our header, you can see it right here at the top. There is the amount of points that the children have scored so far. We decided to give points out for the questions that were answered right, to ensure that the children stay engaged. And they can see their amount of points at all times at the top of the page. There's also a go back to start button. If they have technical difficulties or anything of that matter, they can just start all over again. It will, however, reset the points so that the children cannot get an unlimited amount of points by restarting all over again when they have finished the tour, because that's of course not what we want. So when you start with the app, you first get an introduction text, and when you've read that text, you can go to the first walking screen. And this screen will tell you to which location you need to walk. And then you can find a marker on the map, and you can just go there, and then once you're there, you can confirm that you have arrived at your location and go on to the next screen. Here you will get either a small text about Willem and who he is, that's at the start of the game, And when you're a bit further on, Willem will be talking to you and explaining things about the hamburger factory and other important things that the children need to learn. When they have read the text, they can confirm that they're ready for the next question, and then they can read the question and answer it. These questions are not based on time, so they have all the time in the world that they need in order to read the question and think about it, maybe talk about it with other students, and then they can answer the question. When they have answered the question right, it will tell them that they have answered it right, and it will repeat the right answer so that they can remember, oh yeah, that's right, I indeed did click on that one. When they have chosen the false answer, it will still tell them the right answer to make sure that the children still know what answer they should have chosen. And that is the prototype that we have coded. We put all our questions in this, and that will bring us to the next part.
So we finished the prototype, and before it actually was entirely finished, we asked for some feedback from our fellow students. So we let them play the first part of the game that was finished, and they told us, well, this could be better, this could be better. So we implemented this, and then the most fun part, in our opinion, we asked my niece, nephew, and my 2 stepsisters to come to Utrecht, and we had them test out the completed game. We gave them the map and let them figure it out all on their own. And then we had them fill in a questionnaire. And they were really enthusiastic, and it was really nice to see that the hard work we put in really paid off. And they also gave some new insights and some final points that we wanted to work on. Of course, we had a lot of very fun ideas at the beginning, and some were maybe a little bit too high up for us in the time span we had. So some ideas that we would have wanted to put in are, it would be nice to have the map in the app itself, so that also people could see their own location and walk in the app. They don't need a separate paper to find where they're going. It would be nice to have a leaderboard, so that when you play this in a class of like 25 people, students could see like their other students and see how many points they have, how far they are in the game, giving some more motivation to try a little harder. We also would like to make a lesson plan so that children don't go into the game with absolutely zero knowledge, so that they know at least a little bit about it. And we would have them fill in their own name, so that Willem and Jan, the people in the game, could like talk to the students, so that it feels a little more personal. And with that was our presentation. Thank you for listening. If you would like to play the game, you can scan the QR code, and then it will bring you to the webpage. And if you have any questions, you can ask us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Definitely give it out, give it a spin. It's really well built. I think there's time for a little Q&A. I'm curious if there are some questions here from the audience and in the live stream. If there are questions, make sure to put them
In the chat.
in the chat. That's the right place to put them. And otherwise you can raise your hand in a bit, but we always have one question we ask the groups first, right? This is a bit of a tradition by now.
Yeah, you can go.
I can go,
Yeah.
and that question is, what is one of the most memorable moments you've had as a team within the Living Past course and working on this project?
Well, I already shortly mentioned it in the presentation, but it was definitely trying out the finished prototype. It was a way that we could really see like all the work we put in and see how the children reacted to it. And it was really nice to see them so enthusiastically playing the game, having fun.
It's good to get that appreciation, right?
Yeah.
You agree, as well?
Yeah, I really agree. Yeah, that was one of the best parts of the course. Yeah.
Great. Then it's time for not our questions, but questions around. Do you see any fingers, Joja?
Well, are there any fingers?
There are fingers, but they're not pointing up.
Well, I have a question.
Oh.
Did you alter anything after you did the first round with the children?
We noticed some small mistakes in the text that we wrote because we first had done some other way around. And when the children were reading out loud, so that we could really listen to what they were saying. Those are some things that we noticed. And they pointed out to us that they could go back to the start and then play it all over again and get more points. So that's also something that we altered after our prototype testing.
Oh, trial and error, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
interesting to see how people kind of work around what you
Yeah.
intended for them to do. Huh?
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
that's why you play test. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a good finding. Are there any questions, Simon, from the online realm, perhaps?
Well, I think you did too good of a job because there's only a compliment in there and no questions. Juan Peter says, impressive presentation, exclamation mark.
What? Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
well deserved. If time allows, I do still have a question.
Yes, very much appreciated. What would you like to ask?
I know you all in the group picked personal learning goals and you also took on some different roles.
Mhm.
I was wondering if you, I know it's very hard to actually develop a real prototype. Were there any particular challenges you ran into, or do you think it was all smooth sailing from the beginning?
Well, personally, I had one learning goal in which I wanted to learn more about. Oh, wait, I don't really know how I worded it anymore, but it was about how effective certain strategies are for teaching certain people certain stuff. We finished like the entire prototype, and then I had a facilitator meeting with Ivar, and then I realized, well, have I really completed this goal? Not really. So then we didn't have any time to put it in the presentation, but we made another questionnaire in which we asked some similar questions to see how effective was it really? Did they really learn anything? And is this really an effective strategy to convey information? And it was not really complete, but the outcome is that they learned something, but not 100%, of course. But it was quite interesting. So that was, I guess, a little bit of a...
Yeah, it's a good follow-up question to make from your personal learning goal and
Yeah.
the evaluation. So.
And for me, I think that at the start we were all struggling a bit with how we really had to set up this project, because as mentioned, we're all UTalent students, so this was all very new to us. But I think that they really helped us a lot at the Utrecht Archive, and because we hadn't done historical research before, and they really helped us and showed us how to navigate an archive and really how to handle historical data. And for me, a personal learning goal was learning how to program with user experience in mind. And that's something that really worked out well. And that's also something that we tested in the questionnaire we did after testing our prototype. Children were actually very enthusiastic and really knew which buttons to click and thought it looked very nice. So that's something that worked out pretty well.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the very final moment for any questions to arise. If you still have one,
I do have a question. You too.
please, yes.
The target audience are children, and you focus on the subject of a factory. But I think these children have never been in a factory, so they can't imagine how it is to be in a factory. Wouldn't it be easier for children to connect with the past when you focus on the daily life of children or family life, of how it is to be a child 70 years ago?
Yeah, well, the problem is that, at least we hope that children did not work in a factory at that time. So if we would use the daily life of a child, I guess it would be, of course, different than how it is now, but I don't think they would be working in a factory, and it would be kind of hard to teach them anything about the actual factory. So I get your question, but I think that in order to actually teach them something about the factory, we did have to choose like a grown-up person.
Of course you have to choose.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
But
so-
when you ask the children, how would it be there, looking around in that factory? Do they have any image about that?
Well, the thing
I
is,
don't think so.
no, I don't think so either. We did have some pictures on the Utrecht Archive that we found that could kind of show how the work was. We put some in the game as well. However, many of them also have like copyright, so we could not put everything in, sadly. But that would give them a better picture of how it was.
Yeah, due to time constraints, we couldn't get the rights in order to put them into the app. But that's something for the future as well.
Yeah.
It could be a very nice addition.
Good question and also good response. Thank you so much for your presentation and being here for this Q&A. And then we're going to take a little break through another bumper, and then the next theme is going to go up. But first, a final applause for UTalent.
Okay, so welcome to our presentation. Thank you for making time to come here today with us. We are Team Live in Puri. I'm Victor, Ethan, Joran, Rosa, and Sarah is behind the camera. And we are going to introduce you to our project called Bites of Lombok. Bites of Lombok, it's an app that introduces you to personal stories and architectural history behind Lombok food businesses. We invite you to come with Perry the cat, to our narrator, to learn a little bit more about the neighborhood. Also, we hope that after this presentation and seeing the prototype, you learn a little bit more about Lombok. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the target audience and the purpose and the goals of this project. Then we are going to talk about the design process, the content process. Then we have the exciting part. We are going to show you the prototype and you're going to learn, you're going to meet Perry the cat. And then we are going to conclude with some remarks. We are going to talk about the limitations we had while we were doing this project. And then in the Q&A, we hope that we can answer all of your questions. Okay, so our target audience are the newcomers that are going to go to Lombok. We have two groups of people. First, we have the exchange students like me that are coming here to this city to study in University of Utrecht. And we think they would be very interested in new about the food and the dishes and the historical context of the neighborhood. And also we focused in the new migrants because there are many people that are coming here for working, and Lombok is a very diverse neighborhood, and by using this app they are going to learn about the historical context, and they are going to get more familiar with the neighborhood. And of course all the people that are going to come to Lombok, and they would be interested in this. So you might ask, why are we creating an app, or why are we having these questions? So we wanted to challenge ourselves in a way that we can increase the cultural awareness of the people in a fun and interesting way. So that's why we created an app. And we think Lombok is a very diverse place with a strong diversity. And we can mostly see it in the food. We think the food is something very simple, concrete, that appears in everyday's and everybody's lives. So we are going to make it a very tangible topic to engage with. In this project, we want to highlight the personal oral stories and oral history, because sometimes when we are talking about history, we are focusing more in the big events instead of the personal histories. So this has a integration purpose. We think that after using this app, the people are going to feel more integrated, because they are going to learn about the past of this neighborhood. And also it has an experimental purpose, because we are using a new technology from Apple called AppCliss, that Ethan is going to talk about it right now.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So now we're going to be talking about our design process. And first we begin with a discussion of our ideation phase and the iterations of our potential prototype. So our original idea was to work a lot with personal oral histories as a means to convey individual experiences of those living in Lombok. And after developing it a bit, it became something similar to our final prototype, which was a QR code-based digital storytelling application that uses food as a symbolic medium to tell personal, cultural, and historical stories of the neighborhood. Next slide. And after workshopping with that idea a lot more, we ended with our final prototype called Bites of Lombok. And what it is a digital storytelling application that works alongside restaurants and other food businesses in the neighborhood and basically tells their own stories and histories of the establishment. This application provides a new level of interactivity for the user in which they are able to engage with the restaurant and the history of the restaurant and are able to bridge these sort of cultural knowledge gaps that may be in place. And it also provides a level of interactivity for business owners because they are given a sort of new voice to tell their own stories and memories. And we wanted to work with Apple App Clips for our prototype. And if you don't know what Apple App Clips are, it is a relatively new development by Apple that uses an NFC tag that you can place wherever you want. And basically all you need to do to access the app is to be in close proximity with this tag, and it'll open the app for your phone without you having to download it at all. So next slide. And now we're gonna talk about our branding and style exploration. So considering that our prototype deals with themes of food and culture and history and revolves around newcomers and older generations and those who are living in Lombok already, it was really important that we design and make sure our app is cohesive stylistically so that the user feels that they're engaging with the correct product. So since our app deals with fostering community and sharing tradition and using food as a means to connect people together, we wanted to go for a more friendly, warm, and welcoming direction. And after a lot of mood boarding sessions and drafting, we came up with the graphical and copywriting elements that you're gonna see in our prototype showcase. And now I'll pass it on to Joran to talk about our content.
Yes, thank you, Ethan, for explaining the design process. And now I want to take you all on our journey to collect insights that would eventually make the content for the application. And before we did that, we set up some content goals, like what do we really want to have there. And what we thought most important was to have a bit of personal content with elements that can connect a past of an area with something you can experience in the present. So for example, a restaurant or a bakery having elements of a personal story of the owner, of the food, but also have some information about the building, what was it before? Was it always a restaurant? Was it a factory? Was it something else? And that way we try to combine those content to create engaging material that we can use to balance an application that is either learning people something, but it's also a bit of fun. And in addition, it also gives food businesses an opportunity or a platform to tell their story, their establishment on another way, a new voice, so they can make new connections with clients. Can you go to the next slide? And one of the main methods we use for that is by conducting interviews. And we actually chose to do semi-structured interviews, which basically means that you have a set of questions ready, but also leave some space for the person you're interviewing to tell their bit of a story, to leave the room. And actually we did have the questions, so we made a list of questions circled around themes like what are personal stories behind the food, what are personal stories about starting the business, about running the business, but also about food offer, menus, recipes, ingredients. So we thought that kind of content was important to include in the application, but then again also it's not our story to tell, so we wanted to leave that room for owners to have some input in that. And the second, can you go to the next slide? And the second type of content consists of archival history content, which we basically dove into the archives of the Utrecht online archives to look about documents, pictures, something that could tell us something about the area in a different time. And for our prototype, which we'll be showing later, we made use of an interview we did with Arabella Restaurant, which is at the Kop van Lombok, right next to the new mosque. So that's our personal component. And to add that, we found some interesting content about the redevelopment of the place, because it's quite a new building there, so it was a bit difficult to find really historical content about the building, but the area itself used to be something else, so we could have, we included that. And if you combine them, then, okay, go to the next slide. That makes together our content, and which we want to present in a storyline kind of way. And that came up with a big question actually, because how do we make a story on an application that is engaging without overloading the audience with information, because we are not writing a paper or something, so if you want people to interact with it and they see a load of text, most people are gonna think, well, I'm not reading this right now, and we don't want it because we have cool content to show. So we thought about ways to make more interactive digital storytelling. So we used kind of theories for that, and we basically thought about narrative flow. So how is the story getting presented? Who is telling the story? Do we have several characters in the story? But also, do the users have a way of interact with the story? Are they able to maybe change the outcome of the narrative flow? And we kind of chose to go for an author-centric content in which we are the authors telling a story or presenting a story, but also have a component which makes it interactive by presenting different options. So you are at a restaurant, what do you want to know more about? And users can choose, I want to know more about food or about the business, but this will be more clear when we show the prototype, because there's another important aspect left, because right from the start we wanted to use Purry the cat, which is an ID by Bibi. We're using your ID, thank you for that, which is basically a non-human character, fictional character, which can explain, which is an inhabitant of Lombok, which have cat senses, sees everything, observes, but normally doesn't engage in conversation with people. We really like the idea about a cat seeing all, hearing all the stories and sharing that knowledge with users. But the original idea was intended to be for a children's novel, and we are not targeting children, like not newcomers, but could be children as well, but not only children. So we had to really think about the relevance of Purry. So we kind of had the thought, do we kill our darling cat? And we didn't want to, but we actually asked our target audience, so newcomers to Lombok, exchange students, what they thought of Purry's presence in the app. And when we did it with the first round of evaluation, people said, well, it's fun, but it doesn't look very relevant. Why is the cat there? But that was also because the story we presented wasn't really centered around the cat, so it didn't make that much sense. After we added the story around the cat, people said it made sense and it was fun and was a good component, so we didn't kill Purry. And Rosa's going to show you the prototype.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you the prototype. I have to wait a little bit until it's on.
1 second. This one.
Yeah. Okay, so when you are near a restaurant, you will get a notification of an app clip, which will look like this. And then you tap on open and you come in the application. You can click through. And here is Puri, and he is welcoming you to the application and to Lombok, telling a bit about Lombok and himself. And then Puri is telling you you're outside of Arabella restaurant. Would you like to know more about who I am, so you can learn a bit more about why Puri the cat is there? Or if you want to learn more about the restaurant, of course, we want to learn more about the restaurant. So here you have a general introduction about the restaurant where you're at. And then you can choose which component you want to learn more about. I don't think you can read it, but it says the owner, the food, and the area. So for now we will want to know more about the owner. And the owner which we spoke to is Mohammed. He was there for 3 years. And here you can choose which question you would like to ask Mohammed. So would you like to know how did he become the owner, or what his favorite dish is? So for now, let's see why he wanted to become the owner. There's a little story about how he started the business, how he was interested in that. And then you're at the end of the story. You can either choose to go back to the topics or finish the story. So for now we will just finish it. And then you come at the complete page. You can restart the story, or you can check out other locations. And to check out other locations, you will get a map. You can browse through, look at other locations that may be near, and if you want to view their story, you can. That's the prototype for now. It wasn't really readable, I think, and we went through it quite fast. So after the presentation, we welcome you to come to us and we can show you the prototype. You can browse through it yourself a little bit. And now I will take, Sarah will take the stage.
Hi, I'm free from being behind the computer. So now we're talking about some limitations and future work for this project. So one big limitation was time, and that meant that we couldn't have a participatory element in the earlier stages of our design process. So we should have put in more of like a co-creation element in the earlier stages, the brainstorming part. And another limitation was that we only had access to a limited range of newcomers. So all of our product testers were exchange students aged between 20 and 25. And we talking to different kinds of newcomers, like we mentioned, new migrants, new residents, or anyone new to the neighborhood, would have expanded the kind of feedback we got, and like these people would have different ideas about what the app can be. So moving on to our future directions. In our next slide. So one big thing was we would have liked to have more food establishments, so more restaurants on the map, but also grocery shops there and bakeries. So with more food establishments, our users can have a great, broader exploration of Lombok. Another thing is that we would have liked, another future direction to go in is to have more design cycles with newcomers and also business owners. So one thing that we think the app can do is to help with marketing and branding. And we feel like having more conversations with business owners where they can tell us feedback, suggestions, and aspirations for the app could inform how we design it moving forward. One thing that came up when Mohammed was speaking to us was that during the pandemic, his business was hit quite hard. And we feel that in these post-pandemic times, Bites of Lombok can play that role of a new kind of branding, one that's about personal stories, not just about food. We also think that this app has a lot of value in potentially increasing sense of belonging for newcomers, because you go into a place, it's not just foreign. You can go to a restaurant and say, hey, I know the name of this restaurant, and I know the story behind this place, and you feel a bit more at ease. You feel like, you know this place. So yeah, co-creation cycles could possibly help achieve these goals a lot better, and also on our stakeholders' terms. And with that, that is the end of our presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. And one final shout out for Muhammad for his time sharing his story with us. Yep, the floor is now open for questions, and if anyone wants to toy with the prototype, just approach us. Thank you.
All right, it is indeed time for some questions.
Yeah.
Maybe because we're kind of avoiding this space because there were presentations on it, we can move the beamer in that angle, so we can just use the space. Is that an idea?
Yeah.
So that I don't know what will happen if we actually turn it off, but yeah,
There you go.
Oh.
perfection.
From
Come here,
Yes, yeah.
come over here.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions?
That's
In
much
the
better.
audience?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like this.
Oh, we have our question though. We first need to ask that. It's very, it's
Sorry,
tradition.
you have to wait.
That's
sorry.
true. Now you know it, right?
Yeah.
What's the question again?
What was the most memorable moment of the project?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it for a little bit, but maybe that was just this afternoon.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer. I
One
haven't
of
heard
one
that
of the
one
most
yet.
memorable because we were meeting at a coffee place, to final rehearse the presentation, and that's also a moment like the coming together moment. Like, whoa, we have a prototype, we have a story, we can elaborate on the story. That's quite memorable, I think.
All right, yeah, just a bit before this and here it coming together, and it did. So I'm wondering indeed, does the audience have any questions to ask you? Yes? Wait a sec, I'm going to give this a try. If you could project your voice.
Yes. I'm curious, did you actually have dinner at Mohammed's? And if yes, did you like it?
Well, that's a good one.
No, not
We
yet.
didn't.
No. But his story, he was quite passionate about a few. We asked him what was his favorite dish, and he was very passionate about that. So him talking about it made you want to go there. So I think I will go there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That was yeah.
Another question. Yes.
Do you think your product could be added to the QR codes that are already there?
I think
As in like the tiles, you mean?
Yeah. I don't know if the tiles are here, but
Oh yeah, definitely. But we were mostly focused on using like Apple App Clip tags because they would be within the restaurant, not outside, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that was what was the thinking process behind that?
Because Apple App Clips are proximity based,
Mhm.
so it would be a lot easier for people to access it instead of having to search for a QR code and then get out their camera and scan it. And also a clip of an app gives you all the features of an app rather than a QR code that brings up a website.
Okay, clear? Yeah. Another question from Bibi. Yes.
Are the Apple app clips only available for Apple users?
Good question. So we actually only designed our prototype for Apple App Clips just for the ease of using Apple's user interface. But there are also things such as Android Instant apps, which functions on Android devices.
Yeah, so it's basically the same idea.
Other question from the audience, or maybe there's even someone online.
In the chat box.
Just imagine that way.
No questions this time.
Oh.
There are compliments.
Well, let's hear them.
So again, you received the compliments of Twan Peters, who's also watching, I think, in his car at the moment. Yeah, and my compliments as well. But I also have a question, if that's allowed. Is it allowed? Okay, thank you. I realize you're quite a mixed group in terms of backgrounds, and I don't think you really reflected on this in the presentation. But maybe you could mention a bit about how you approached this. Did you really try to take your strengths from your background in this project, or did you try to do something entirely new? And also, what was it like to work in a team with people you didn't know, with all kinds of different backgrounds?
I think for our team, most of us did something we've never done before. So I'm a geography student. I've never touched coding in my life. And I decided I would learn HTML and how to use Figma and user design. So I think our team did more of a crossover. So science people, you are doing arts now, you're doing the interviews. Arts people, too bad, you're doing tech now.
Yeah, for me it was really useful because I learned how to use Figma because they knew how to use it and how to design. My background is from biology, so it was nice to learn about programming and using Figma.
Yeah, my background is from cultural anthropology, so a part was familiar ground for me, like doing the interviews, but processing the interviews was a whole different story. So working with Figma, making small compact texts, because I like to make long texts, so that was kind of difficult, but fun experience.
Yeah, so for me, I'm an information science student, and I was doing more of like the interview thing, so I also stepped out of my usual discipline and learned more from Joran's discipline, I think.
And I'm a product design and UI UX student, but I don't necessarily get to work a lot with graphic design, so being able to play around with those tools was really fun and a great skill to learn.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really impressive that you all stepped out of the comfort zone and could still manage to create something tangible presented here. It's also quite a brave choice, I think. So great job there.
Thank you. Definitely. Any final questions? Speak now or be silent forever. Because then it's actually time for a little plenary moment where we're all together on stage and maybe can answer questions about the course or experiences in the course. So I'd like to ask Annika and Elise forward to join us for one final time. Make a bit of space. Simon, is it working out making sure all of us are in the picture?
You are all in the picture, but don't move.
Okay, I will stay exactly here.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's see. Are there any questions you would like to ask about the experiences within the course from the audience or maybe somebody online? We could do a quick round with questions around as well as in how did you experience a particular thing, or lots of options available. Yes.
I think if I understood right, the first team, you're still in high school. I would just like to say I think it's very, very impressive that you've done the work that you've done, and I think you should be very proud. And I'm curious how it was for you participating in a uni course.
Well, let's just say that we worked really hard, and it was quite stressful. But I mean, the parents, I think they know what we're talking about. But it also we learned a lot. Both of us, we talked about this, and yeah, we really learned a lot, and it was like a very nice overall. It was an experience.
Is the right word?
It was an experience, and it was really nice to get to know like these people and also university. So
yeah, it really opened our eyes for next year what we will be going into when we start university, and really show that not everything is like high school. So yeah, it was a very cool experience. Yeah.
To be fair, usually you don't do high school and university at the same time, right?
No.
It's a bit superhuman that you managed.
Yeah. I don't know how we did it.
We're not either, but it's all there, so very well done. Maybe a question then to the other team members. How did this compare to your regular university career, this course? Because is this representative for what you can expect at university overall?
For me, not really. I am like more used to like just you have a course, you have I don't know how you say that, hoorcolleges. So you have like the lectures, yeah. And you have an exam or a midterm exam, and usually one group project. I did have some courses that do. Where I needed to make an application, so that was a bit similar, but not as free as in this course. So in this course, there's not really like a direction you're going in, and beforehand having the deadlines, you have a few deadlines, but because you don't know which workshops you're going to do or whatever. That's quite different from a normal course I've taken. Yeah.
And I think this course also prioritizes growing and that process of like learning something. Because in other uni courses, it's like you submit this paper and you try and play on your strengths as much as possible to get the highest grade. But here it kind of pushes you to ask like, what do you actually want to do and what do you want to grow in? And it's not like what you end up doing in the end, how good that is still important. But there's also a lot of emphasis placed on like, how did you get there? How do you feel about how you got there? So I think that's, I don't know, there's something very unique about this course. And I think it's great. Like you have a very small class size and that really helps a lot. Yeah.
Good to hear that, yeah. It's needed maybe in addition to what other courses can offer, in the sense of maybe getting more information and skills across, but here indeed maybe more a place to grow. Yeah? Any other people would like to make an addition, or shall we ask the audience again if there are more questions?
The latter, I think.
Yeah. Any other questions, maybe getting towards some final questions? I guess the live stream is still a bit silent, only compliments. They are very generous today. Yeah. Then maybe we can ask you a final question. Would you like that? Oh, no, you wouldn't like that. Now we introduce the topic and the audience is longing to get an answer. How did you experience it, being on the other side of the classroom for a change? Because you were currently
last year
as a
I worked
student.
over there, now I'm over here.
Yes.
It's a very amazing course. I cannot say anything differently, I guess. It's so cool also to see, like now, to see you grow, and also last year I think also our group did so much cool things, and also we growed as a group. So it's really nice to see that again with a different...
That you offer to us. Thank you for the questions, for being attentive and joining into the live stream. And then we would like to wish you a great end of this week.